Everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity, and gosh, I love turning you guys on to people you've probably never heard of, but they've been around a long time. Their imprint on American music has been made and known among others, and this is one of those people. John McAndrew just released his 14th solo album, and it's called The Better Side of Me. And I don't know about you, but I don't like listening to records that sound the same all the way through, or they sound like someone's heart's not in it. You're not going to get any of that from this album. This album has variety of beautifully written music and excellently recorded. And wow, I think I know you guys are going to love this album. So I encourage you to buy it. But not only that, you're going to hear all that, but a lot of that sound's going to be because of great production. And the producer on this album is Denny Sywell. Now, you may ask, who's that? Because if you're not really, really, really deep into music and who's who in the zoo on certain albums and such, I'm kind of a geek at some of that. You may not know Denny. Denny was one of the founding members of a little band called Paul McCartney and Wings. He was the original drummer on there. And he worked on Live and Let Die. And I mean, the guy knows everybody and he knows what he's doing. And his name is synonymous with excellent music. And it's synonymous with this album because it is excellent music. Also on the album is Fernando Perdomo, excellent musician. All of that to say, please buy this album. May as well order it now before you even start listening to this interview because it's that good. But I ask that you also listen to the interview. Hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Neither is going to cost you anything, of course. And please share this interview with others because this is going to be a guy that if you're not already familiar with him, you're going to want to be and you're going to want to follow him from here on out. And that is John McAndrew. So please do that. And until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. Hello, John.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Likewise. You're lucky enough to live in Nashville, huh?
I sure am. Randy, who's that really handsome guy behind you?
I don't know, but I feel a lot of eyes beating down on me, man.
Too funny.
What
Yeah,
part of Nashville you live in?
well, we live over by the airport, and
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
good, to get in and out of town. And
Yeah, well, I've seen the lines at that airport. It's not that easy.
I know it's gotten pretty bad or good,
It
depending
has.
on, a lot of people are coming to Nashville, that's for sure.
Yep. A lot of companies and all that. I was there. I worked in Nashville twice, but the last time was just like from the summer of 2019 until the shutdown in 2020.
Yeah,
And I worked at one of the buildings over there near the Ryman and all that. So I loved it
sure.
there. It was so much fun. I was in my element there the whole time. But
So your fascination with all this and kind of your work and fascination with music and interviewing and writing, it's lasted a lot longer than you thought, hasn't it?
yeah, yeah, a lot longer. I
It's
thought
really cool.
I thought it was going to be over with in a year, and
Wow. Good for you.
I, I thank you. I ended that first year. Honestly, John, I was going to use it to kind of showcase the writing I was doing, but
Right.
at the end of the year, I had not only that writing, but I had 25 interviews.
Wow.
And I was like, holy crap, I might be onto something. I had some pretty big names, Ace Frehley and Rob Parisi of Wild Cherry and on and on and on. And I was like, all right, this is fun. I think I'll stick with this a while. And so now I'm in my 17th year doing it and somewhere getting close to 600 interviews now.
Well, good for
So,
you, and I can speak, I think, for a lot of artists and musicians, and I gotta look at my hair there. Gotta fix my hair.
There
Um,
you go.
we appreciate a little bit of time to talk about stuff. Nowadays things are so condensed and just, you press a button, you get a little quote and stuff. So I'm a kind of an older guy and I appreciate, a conversation about what's going on, especially the new album and stuff. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with people like me. I know I'm not exactly Rolling Stone magazine, thank God,
Right.
but there's a lot of people like me out there. They approach things differently, but I just like having the conversation. And
Right.
I'm not a musician. I don't play. I sang in concert choir in high school and took some music theory and all that, but that wasn't my talent. It just wasn't. So I get to write about guys who do have the talent. So,
Well, it takes somebody to listen, you
well, that's
know.
true.
We
And know
wouldn't
what
be
they
doing it
like.
if nobody to listen, then.
So, well, man, I really do appreciate this, and I absolutely love the album. When John Lappin sent it to me, I was listening. Of course, just so you know, my relationship with John Lappin,
Mhm.
he's one of the few people that when they send me something, I don't even have to listen to it. I mean, I listen to your album, of course, but if John sends it to me, I know I'm going to like it because he knows what I do pretty well, and
Uh,
but he deals with quality,
well,
and
yeah, I
I
really
never have
appreciate
to
him.
question it. He's an amazing guy, one of the best men I've never met in person. So
Oh, wait, there you go. I'm sure he hears that a lot.
yeah,
I, I'm in really good company with this whole thing with who produced it, and then getting it to Quarter
yeah,
Valley Records and, the team that they're doing something pretty unique.
hmm
Taking some chances with, people like me and um, that are not a real big name. And, I really appreciate it. And being around these people has helped me a lot, that know it. They've been doing this for a long time. I wanted to say know what they're doing. We assume that, but experience is really an important thing anymore,
it is.
you
Well, and you
know.
get somebody like Bruce Quarto. He's. I want to interview him sometime because it's just
Uh,
that label is just such a. I think I've interviewed just about everybody on their roster. I think there's
oh,
one
great.
or two I have not, and every one of those people are amazing talents. Each
Oh,
band, each
great.
individual, and I absolutely love what they're doing as a label. I love it
Hmm.
when they're artist centric. They just there's a handful of others that fall in that same category, in my opinion, and they love to help get the word out, and they appreciate the little guys like me that do what we do. So
Yeah.
I'm always that's the second check mark that I look for. Who's the label? And, oh, Quarto.
Well,
Oh, just
great.
don't even have to question it. So
Well, thank you.
now, if I counted correctly, this is what your 14th album.
Yeah, yes, it is correct. And, some of them weren't distributed as well as the others. But yeah, I've been doing this for a little while. I think I'm proud of my body of work, and my first real publishing deal, an album, I got signed down in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, to
Mm-hmm.
Malaco Music, and then I did an album down there with sort of the roots of the Swampers band. And what an experience that was. You can probably tell I'm not from down south. I'm from Minnesota.
Just a small hint there. So,
Yeah, and I went down there and oh my gosh, it just I saw the records on the walls and there'd be people sitting around the studio, and I go, who's that? And oh, that's the guy that wrote Dock on the Bay. He just kind of sits around. He lives down here. They all look like they're car mechanics or electricians down there. They're not, it's a lot different than LA.
Yeah.
down in Muscle Shoals, you know.
Yeah.
But that's
Now,
where I got
which studio was that? Was that the Fame studio or the other studio?
the other one was Muscle
Okay.
Shoals. It was down by the river, the larger studios, and
Okay.
Roger Hawkins was the producer with me, the drummer,
Yeah.
and uh, and it was fascinating, you know. And I didn't know squat, and I was stubborn. And Roger said, "You're just as stubborn as Paul Simon." And I kind of took that as a compliment, but what do you? I insisted on writing my own stuff, and they wanted to write some hit songs, and they kind of were the. I remember him saying to me, "We're going to make you kind of a, you're like Bob Seger. You remind us of Bob Seger, you know."
Hmm.
And so I didn't take any of their songs and sold about 9 records, you know. So I learned a little
Mm.
less. Those people down there know how to write hit songs for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was
Wow.
number one, and then you know, there's more have followed.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you originated where in California?
No, born in Wisconsin, and then our family
Oh.
moved a lot. But you know, the last really my music and my 10,000 hours and all that stuff happened up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Winona,
Oh, okay.
Minnesota, St. Paul. It's a great performance town where people, you know, people were really willing to pay for you to come play music, whatever kind it was, you know. And that was good for me to cut my chops. And I played in bands, and then one night I went, I just don't want to, I want to write my own stuff and sing it, you know, and it'd be really cool if people were listening, you know.
It
You know,
helps when that happens.
yeah, oh, what a selfish, but you know, so I got a gig playing solo piano in a private club, and I had to learn to play standards and some jazz, and then I mixed my music in, and eventually that led me to the deal down south, you know, somebody came up,
Hmm.
so.
Hmm. So on this record, thinking back to that first one and now this one, what what are some of the differences you experience putting this record together
Mm.
compared not just the first one, but let's say all the other records you worked on, not only yours, but if you worked with anyone else, you've done a lot of songs for people, things like that. What made this album different to work on than all those others?
Well, you know, in 2 words, Denny Seiwell, you know, he's been a good friend for a long time, and we've kind of threatened to do an album together. And I went out to LA, we did a couple of songs, and he goes, "Man, do you have any more of those?" And it just they just rolled off, and it sounded so good. And Fernando was playing, and I said, "I got a whole bunch of them." The difference with this album was that Denny kind of knew what he wanted, how to produce it, which songs would work together, and he kind of didn't let me be too stubborn about stuff. In fact, I heard no quite often. We recorded we recorded 17 tracks, Randy, and we did some blues kind of stuff, which I love playing,
Hmm.
and then we did a Bob Seger. Uh, we did Against the Wind because it kind of tells that story of me going down and all that. But in the end, then he said all original songs. And I think at this point, with all those years that have passed, I people taught me how to be a better songwriter, a little better arranger. It all, you know, you've probably heard other artists say this. It takes time to learn how to do this. And man, there's a lot of people in Nashville. So I've absorbed all that stuff from down in Nashville. Although I
Hmm.
don't fit in that genre, I've had a lot of people in the music biz, you know, I've worked with that go, "Hey, you know, when you do this, you should do this and don't do
Hmm.
that." And so I think I was prepared for Denny to take this album and make it sound like a consistent singer-songwriter thing, you know. That I think that's the biggest difference.
I saw his name on there and I was blown away. I mean, what a resume that guy has. And
Oh gosh, you know.
when now set me straight on something here. Now I'm going to go back 45 years and 44 years. And I promoted some Christian concerts when I lived in Phoenix. And I was one of the few that I did was with Joe English, who was with Wings
Oh,
as well. And he was on the Wings Over America album and then one of a couple of the other studio albums. Where was Denny in? Because Denny played on some of the bigger new stuff that Paul did. Where did Denny was kind of like there a couple different times, was he not?
well, I gotta be careful. I do know one thing that happened is I think Paul called Denny in New York City. And I believe, if I'm correct, Denny was producing a guy that kind of did pretty good named Billy. What's his last name? Billy Joel. That's it.
I think I've heard of him.
I think someone asked Denny, would you work with this guy? And Denny said, sure, we got to do some stuff with him. I think midway between that project, um, Denny got a call from Paul, and Paul said, would you like to form this band? And Denny had a really good reputation in the studios. He's just an unbelievable jazz player as well as pop. Their big hit "Live and Let Die." There's a
Hmm.
lot in that song that I think Denny had a lot to do with the sound and the power and the way that song came out.
Hmm.
And when listen to Denny's playing through lots of those records, when we were in the studio in LA recording this, I kind of closed my eyes and went, "Holy cow, that's that guy playing on
Yeah,
playing on my record." But
that
I
had to
think,
blow your mind.
well, it does, and his experience is just something that's just so worth listening to. I think we didn't disagree a lot, and he'd let me kind of do my thing, but his ears are just so he'd go listen to something and he would
Hmm.
know it was okay or it wasn't. So that's, Wings and all that and his relationship with Paul. I think Denny has a book coming out, which people should look for. I don't know when it's coming out, but he's working on a book, and I'm sure all that will be, part of the.
Let him know I want to talk to him at some point, especially before that book comes out, so that we can time it around there. Because I would love to get
Absolutely.
that story. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, so back on your album, those were the differences. What about surprises? Do you still get surprised when you're working on an album? And if so, were there any on this album
Well,
for you?
cool question, because there were a couple of songs. The first song that we did is a song, it's one of my own tunes, and I've recorded it before. And we just went in and turned up, hit the buttons and said go. And it was just like jumping on a wild horse. I was totally surprised at the sound that came out of us three players, Fernando and Denny and myself. That first song, Only You,
Hmm.
just the energy of it was a bit of a surprise to me. And then the last song, Better Side of Me, which is the title song, hadn't been was the last one written in about 10 minutes, and we were done. And we're going, what should we name this record? And I'm sitting at a piano and I'm thinking of what the theme of the record is. And it's a simple thing. It's about being human, learning by goofing up, asking for help. In the end of the day, I probably did pretty good here, not so good here, and I just hope you see the better side of me. And it took 10 minutes to write that. That was the big surprise for me. And when I sent it to Denny, because he's tough, he's a tough cookie. And I go, I know this is really good, but I'm not going to say anything because I always make the mistake. I think everything's wonderful I do, and it's not. But I sent it to him, and sure as heck, then he goes, there's the title of the record. And another surprise, Randy, was Fernando Perdomo. God, he's just like a tornado of creativity. So it all kind of worked, you know.
Hmm.
We didn't know. We didn't know, but it worked.
That's what I've learned over the years in talking to you and your peers is that that's, as an outsider looking in, I'm, like I said, I'm not a musician. I know enough about music to know that I should stay the heck out of a studio and just talk to you guys. But to hear, I mean, repeatedly, artist after artist, there's chemistry that takes place.
Mhm.
There's good chemistry and bad chemistry, obviously, and then there's the special, the magic. When people get together, whether they've been playing together for years or it's their first time playing together, and there's that something that just clicks. That to
Yeah.
me, I would love to witness that with people who are experiencing that for the first time with that group of people. Just stand back and just kind of feel it and watch it and see what happens. I think that would be
Yeah.
such a cool thing to experience.
And a lot of it isn't by accident. I mean, the song has to be written well, arranged well. There has to be some preparation, but you just never know what's going to happen when you hit the record button. It's why I've done a zillion demos over my life, and generally most of the time the demos are better than but this time around, this record's better than the demos. I think I credit those dudes, and Denny found really good people to mix and work on it, all that stuff. But the groove has to be there, and without that, you're kind of swimming
Yeah,
against the current. So
I can imagine. Is it, you've written a lot of songs, and I know for artists to write, I mean, the kind of writing I do that doesn't involve writing about an artist, an album, or a concert, whatever. It can be a little introspective. It's reflecting on the past and all that, but I'm not having to fit any kind of cadence or, you know, I'm certainly not planning on making a record of it or anything, but there's still a certain small amount of vulnerability I feel when I put a piece of my heart out there to share with others. And with songs, those become emotional attachments to other people and not just to the person who's written them and possibly recording them, such as yourself. How do you feel about that because you are putting yourself, you're exposing an inner part of you with each song that you do. Does it scare you? Does it, you know, uh, tell me about that.
it does scare me. And I'm the type of guy when I'm playing a live concert and everything will be just perfect. It's going great and they're all listening and there's emotion and I got them right where I want. But if I see, an old man way back in row 38, scratching his ear or picking his nose or something, boy, I go, oh my God, I'm a failure. And that's the part. And I think, I've had to learn, and I'm probably going to learn, is not everybody's going to understand the emotion or what you went through. I think I've learned the simpler you keep it, the more likely people are going to understand. But you'd be amazed. I'm amazed that people just inside somewhere know that things work. They just know, they sense that, oh, that song's just not quite working. It's not coming across. Look at a guy like Jelly Roll. You know, he just comes out like out of nowhere, this voice and this music. And then when they produced it, how it just kind of like people, whether they like that type of music or not, they know that that guy means what he's saying. That's what I'm
Yeah,
getting at.
yeah,
And I hope that they understand that I really mean what I'm saying. It's a true, most of them are all true stories, and well, all of them are. So
yeah,
if they trust that you mean what you're saying, I think you got a little better chance, of people at least going, you know,
yeah. Well, one thing I appreciate about your album, in addition to its depth, is the the variety. And it's hard for me to articulate it sometimes. That the albums I love the most are the ones where there's a lot of variety of sound, but there's a sameness of energy. throughout the whole thing. And the energy can be adaptive to the various moods of the song. And maybe that energy is like realizing that there's a sincerity there, a genuineness. You're not
Hmm.
phoning it in, whatever. There's, I those are things I kind of, my listener, my ears
Yeah.
zero in on, and one thing I don't like, or a couple of things I don't like when I hear an album, and it's all the songs you can tell are just variations of the one good
Mhm.
song that they had, and they're tweaking it. Maybe they threw it
Yep.
into AI or something, and it's just variations of the same song. Um, or you don't sense any heart, or or you don't feel like the artist has any real skin in the game when
Yeah.
when you hear it. And even especially if they have written a song and they sound like that, that's a double whammy against it. But your albums on this, that's the reason why, it's like, dang, Lappin did it again, man. He just knows good stuff, and he associates
Oh,
only with great artists. Your album has that variableness, but the sameness of energy, as and heart and passion and vulnerability there. And my hat's off to you on that, because I know that's not an easy thing to create. Number one, and number two, it's not an easy thing to allow yourself to be out there like that in
well,
those ways.
thank you. And I think that was important for Denny. There has to be a thread that runs through it. But we're kind of old school, and we put the songs in a list like you're going to listen to the whole album at once,
Right.
and my grandson said to me, he said, people don't do that anymore, John, You don't have to worry about the order. But we did think about the order. My perception is if I'm doing a concert and you're going to get bored with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you go up and down, and then, where does that song fit in there? And some of the songs are about love and some of the songs about other serious stuff. But you can't lull them to sleep. And I've never heard it described that way, the way you do it. But we're going to appreciate that little quote that you just gave us that we'll
Oh, use
use.
it all you want.
Use it. But I think anybody would appreciate that. And I've never been it's never been really easy to pigeonhole me or stick me in the genres. And we've tried to stick into Americana bluesy stuff, but because I like all that stuff. And so
Well, Americana, though, is such a broad
oh
bucket.
golly,
I
you
mean,
know,
that's like saying rock,
yeah,
but what kind, So
yeah,
Americana can go from bluegrass to rock and Eagles type of stuff, and everything in between. So,
yeah.
to make yourself stand out like you have, I think is you know, being yourself is what made the difference here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's a bigger hoop that can allow me to jump through. I've had different genres and been in consideration and there's a spiritual side to my music. I think that's pretty obvious.
Mhm.
But I never really fit in that way over in that category. But I just have to be me and genuine. And, when you come to hear me in concert, that's what you're going to see and hear. And that's the person you see, you know. So that's really nice. I appreciate that.
Well, you're quite welcome. It's genuine and sincere.
Yeah.
Which now this is going to be a hard question for you, because I know it would be
Uh-oh.
for me if I was to try to answer this for you, and because I don't think I could, because of that variableness of sound, but the consistency of energy there. Um, is there a song on this album that you would point to, not as a favorite, because it's like picking your favorite kid, right? And but what would you point to song wise as the calling card for the rest of the album?
It is really tough. And so I've been asked that. And like any good politician, I'll give you two answers.
Hold it, wait, you already contradicted yourself.
I
Good
know.
politician.
I
So
know. I know.
that's
Yeah.
not even possible.
But
So
then we always want to say something and then we go, but the first cut, Only You, there's something just fun about that and the energy in it. And it's a song about my wife and it's genuine. It's as simple as can be, but so fun to play. And
Hmm.
I would pick that one and then Better Side of Me, of
Yeah,
course, those
yeah,
two.
yeah, yeah.
And then in there, I think there's a bunch of little gems that you're gonna find. Whoa. There's a track on there if it weren't for you that Steve Porcaro is playing strings on.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Good Toto
And
guy
it
there.
yeah, and it comes in like, it's really a nice surprise. And we kind of hope people catch that stuff. And if you listen to that song, it's a little different.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah.
that's a
Wow.
little kind of diamond in there that so now I've given you three, haven't I?
Well, that's fine. That's fine. Like
You
I
know,
said, I mean, that's typical when there's an
sure.
album full of great songs. That's what happens. Well, I like this one, but then this one here, and then and then pretty soon you got the whole album name. So
Yeah. Well, and for me, they need to be a little bit different, which has kept me from I've played in all kinds of bands, but I think songwriting is, you've got different chapters in a book and you've got different stories. And Freedom's
hmm
in Our Blood is an old song I wrote years and years ago.
hmm,
And I changed some of the lyrics, which was fun to put it on this record, but it's something that all of us have. So I mean, I hope with all these songs that they tell a little story that all of us are pretty much the same kind of thing.
yeah.
We all get afraid, we all love, we all fail, we all get back up, we succeed, you know. So that's kind of, lyrically and with the different songs, I try to tell that story. And then, the way they're recorded and the orchestrations are a little bit different. But
Hmm.
I'll tell you what, I can do the whole album just me on the piano.
All right.
And that's a
Wow.
test. You know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
You can't just
You
sing it
can't
to
hide
somebody.
beside someone else's
No, I don't
instrument
have
at that
any
point.
explosions going on. Nobody flying across the.
No
Uh,
Elton John pouncing, old Elton John pouncing on
well,
the piano,
bless
huh?
his heart, but he could do that, boy. He could play and sing. Gee
Oh
whiz.
yeah, he hasn't. He may not be able to move like he did, but I tell you what, one of the guys I interviewed was his bassist for that last tour, Matt Bissonette. His brother's Greg
Oh,
Bissonette, the drummer,
yeah.
and Matt and I have become decent friends here, and wow, just the respect that he has for Elton, just as a musician, and to see you guys when you're the cream of the crop in your craft, guys like me just stand back and we just, we wish we could do what you guys do, but we can't. So we just enjoy listening to what you guys do, and
Wow.
tell others about it. But, the respect that Matt had, what I started to say before I got distracted myself was that, Matt just has the utmost respect and awe for Elton. I mean, I grew up listening to Elton. I became a fan at Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, and
Oh, wow.
was off and
Yeah.
running from there. But so you have gotten some pretty impressive feedback on about yourself and this album. I noticed a couple of names in the press release that were put on there. So tell listeners and viewers a couple of those people who commented, and maybe tell some of the other feedback you're getting from people who have been able to listen to this album, and what they're saying about it.
Well, having Denny's quote
Hmm.
is a pretty big thing, and there's been some other musicians I've been able to work with, and they're all, it's interesting. A lot of them are famous, and so I use their names and stuff like that, but they're all just kind of guys that love music. And
Hmm.
Denny and um, I'm gonna mention Billy Powell, who was a dear friend from Leonard Skinner, and that's probably what you
Hmm.
saw, and he's passed away. But I
Yeah.
was able to get to know him, and on a personal level, and we would play piano together, and he would come and see me play. And I really appreciated what he did, and he appreciated what I did, kind of the songs I wrote and sang. And
Hmm.
when somebody like that gives you a little pat on the back, it means a lot to somebody like me.
Hmm.
And of course, Danny, and there's a bunch of others. And I hope I'll be curious to see what um, people say that don't know me, never met me, and sort of the comments, on how the music has touched them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I said, the vibe of the whole thing is it's worth the investment. And I try to, you know, I yeah, we've all gotten a little spoiled with streaming because it's convenient, but I'm a
Yeah.
believer in buying the music, and
Yeah.
being a support to the end. Because if we don't buy it, you guys aren't going to be able to eat, and if you can't eat, you're not going to be around to record more music.
That's
Let's
simple.
support
Yeah.
the food chain, right? So,
Yeah.
that's what I try to encourage people to do. And if they're going to listen to it online, at least download it so and pay for that, so
Oh,
that there's
great.
so we can keep that musical food chain going. What haven't you done yet musically that you want to do?
Hmm. I've gotten some songs in movies,
Hmm.
and when I close my eyes and dream, you know, here's my big dream, is get one of these songs in like just a huge movie.
That's where the
And
money's at anymore, isn't it? Is
well, like get the
placement.
get the closing credit, the opening, and every
Yeah.
every other song in between. It's really a tough battle. But ultimately, I think I would like to do that. And I have played a big stadium once, but I really like more intimate. So I would say Carnegie Hall. I've played at the Ryman a couple times, but I'd like to play at Carnegie Hall. And I mean, and that's probably, I could be nuts dreaming about stuff like that.
No,
But that would be the ultimate thing where people are seated and have come to listen and have a nice orchestra playing, you know. That'd be
you
cool,
never
wouldn't it?
know.
You
Hey,
never know.
16 plus years ago, I didn't know I'd get to talk to all the cool people I got to talk to. And so
Well, I'm not real cool, but
I think you are.
I can act
I,
like
I, I only talk to cool people, John. Now, come on.
and I apologize, my light went on
Nah,
my little light over here went
you're
goofy.
fine. It's
Yeah.
you're showing up good there. So what's on your radar? The album coming out, and what's the rest of your year look
Well,
like?
May 16th, the album is released and people will hear about that. The following week I go to Cleveland, actually Sandusky, Ohio, and do a little residency. There's a concert on Saturday night, but then I'm going to work with a couple of schools
Ah,
and then a church choir, get a bunch of
ah,
people involved, and then we have a concert Saturday. Following week, I go home to Minnesota and do a concert there, which will be really fun, with the brand new record. And we go to LA to do the CD release in
fun.
June. And so Denny and all those guys are going to be playing with us, and we're going to do
Hmm.
a nice little show, and then we're going to start booking a full tour starting in December, my agency and all that. So
Well,
I'm
cool.
gonna
Well, I
stay
hope
busy.
I hope so, and I hope you come this way. I'm in the Smoky Mountains here, and
Oh,
so
really?
if you, yeah, so I'm not far from you here. I when the pandemic hit, the company I was working for at that time sent us all home to work from home, and
Right.
then then it all goes. Retired since then. Now my dad's caregiver. He has Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
but we're having fun. But yeah, if you get around Knoxville, Chattanooga, heck,
Oh, I
if you're
get to
gigging in
Knoxville.
Nashville, huh?
Yeah, I
Go
will
ahead.
let you know when I
Yeah,
come to Knoxville. There's a couple places to play, and I can kind of clue you in on that off air or whatever. But I'd be glad to meet you.
yeah, that would be a lot of
Have you
fun to be
come
able to
see a
shake hands.
live performance? I think it'd be fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then also if there's anything else you're doing that I can be of help in supporting you on getting the word out and such, we'll just set up one of these and we'll put it out there for people to learn more of what's going on with you and all that. Because I love your
Absolutely
work,
fantastic.
love what you've done, and I'm a believer in it. And I want to be one of. You need a lot of me out there to do this kind of thing, so I want to do
That's
my
right.
part, and I want to do it the best I can. So, but you do great work, and I want to support it. So I'm just
Thank you,
glad John
Randy.
put us together on this. And it's been a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
John's
Anything.
he's got me busy the last week or so, and I'm sure it's going to get busier, you know.
Oh yeah, he's going to do you right. There's no question about it. But anything else you want to share with viewers when this goes out that you'd like for them to know about?
Well, mostly just when you put the record in, if you still have a CD player or if you listen to it online, I would just ask you to listen to the whole thing
Yeah.
and let the thing play through. And there'll be some more surprises, and I have a couple other singles that we might release, and those will be surprises. And I have a new tune which I'll talk to you later about maybe releasing on your show that's
Okay.
not on the record.
Okay.
And
That would be great.
but I'm just excited to get out and work and play and smile and laugh and get serious, all that stuff that happens in a
Yeah.
concert.
Do you do local gigs there in Nashville?
Yeah, I do. We're doing a release in Nashville in September
Okay.
at the Unity Church in Franklin, which is a really beautiful place.
Okay.
Really great
Cool.
grand piano. And so I can keep you posted on some of those things. And
Yeah, please do.
how does this get put up or promoted? Do you do any editing of this, what we've recorded just now?
Yes, I do.
So
If I get to make it.
edit out the part where my light went wacky.
Oh, that wasn't anything at all, really.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that sometime in the coming couple months or so, I hope to make it over to Nashville. If I am, I'll shoot you a note and maybe we can get together for coffee or something. That would be
Oh, that'd
fun.
be perfect. Really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So, well, John, thanks a million for taking the time to chat with me. And like I said, I love your album, and let's just stay in touch. And I look forward to hearing more great stuff from you in the
All
future.
right. Thank you, Randy. Keep up the good work.
You too, sir.
All
Till
right,
next
brother.
time. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye bye.